I think many astronomers would agree that there is other life out there in the universe and that it may well be intelligent life. I think where perhaps you become a lone voice or a near lone voice is to think that what we're seeing now is potentially an alien battleship when evidence points the other way, that this is a natural object.
No, well, when you say evidence, when people say it behaves like a comet, what they mean is that we see a cloud of dust and gas around it. Now, imagine seeing a cloud of dust at a distance and claiming that it must be a horse because a horse is a natural object that produces dust when it runs. And then I tell you, no, it's actually a car that made this dust. Just looking at the dust cloud does not tell you anything about the object itself. I mean, obviously, experts have their confidence, but my point about science is as follows. The foundation of science is the humility to learn. It's not the arrogance of expertise. And what you see very often is experts tell you what something should be and demonstrate by that the arrogance of their expertise. They're not willing to learn something new.
Well, that it comes from a different a different star system with perhaps different compositions, perhaps. That's what astronomers would say. Isn't there a danger, though, that you're selecting evidence to shape a narrative? And that is how conspiracy theories start.
It has nothing to do with conspiracy theory because I'm advocating the collection of as much data as possible. In fact, the real risk for science is from experts telling us the answer without checking the answer by empirical data. It reminds me always of the Vatican not willing to look through Galileo's telescope because they knew the answer. And so the risk is really from us not collecting enough data to test our assumptions. So my approach is basically trying to get as much data as possible to educate us, because nature's imagination is often more expansive than ours.
So finally then, is this an unwanted gift for the holiday season?
I don't think so. For me, it's a very wanted gift because, frankly, when I read the news every day, and that's what everyone wants you to do, just focus on matters down to earth, I get very depressed. And frankly, one reason that I'm seeking a higher intelligence in outer space is because I don't often find it here on Earth.
Finally, the most anticipated event has unfolded. On December 19th, 3I Atlas made its closest approach to Earth, a moment that captured the attention of astronomers and the public alike. Officially, everything seems to be in order. The object is exactly where the ephemeris predicted it would be, and it appears intact, leaving scientists confident that we are in no danger. As of now, 3I Atlas is moving away from Earth, continuing its journey toward an encounter with Jupiter in March. But amid these calm reports, something strange remains. Observatories have detected a heartbeat, a rhythmic pattern in the object's brightness that continues to defy simple explanation. Was it a temporary anomaly, or could it signal something far more significant? What is causing this pulse, and could it point to a deeper mystery, one that we've yet to fully grasp? As 3I Atlas ventures deeper into space, the question lingers: what is the true meaning of this strange signal? At first glance, the phenomenon seemed familiar. Like other comets and celestial bodies, 3I Atlas's brightness fluctuated as it spun. This is typical of objects in space that have uneven surfaces, where sunlight hits different parts of the object in turn. The periodic change in brightness, a regular pulse if you will, was detected by multiple observatories. But there was something more to it. The cycle of this pulse was consistent, with a period of around 16.16 hours. Yet as the object neared its closest approach to the Sun, that period shifted to approximately 15.48 hours. In itself, the pattern wasn't the most baffling aspect. It was the fact that the change in the pulse's timing wasn't consistent with the natural models we've built for such objects. Why would a comet, a simple chunk of ice and rock, exhibit such a specific, timed rhythm? More than that, why would it change as it passed closer to the Sun? As scientists wrestled with these questions, one thing became clear: The heartbeat of 3I Atlas wasn't simply a random variation in brightness. Something more was at play, and it couldn't be dismissed as a simple outgassing or rotational effect. Some researchers began to suggest that what was happening might not be a natural process at all. Avi Loeb, the renowned astrophysicist, was one of the first to highlight the strange and perplexing anomalies of 3I Atlas. Among them was the jet activity of 3I Atlas, which raised eyebrows. As expected, the object exhibited signs of outgassing, releasing material from its surface as it heated up. But this wasn't a typical cometary tail. Rather than the usual tail streaming away from the sun, 3I Atlas displayed a sunward jet, a phenomenon that defied expectations. After its perihelion, the point where it passed closest to the sun, the object continued to emit a narrow, tightly collimated jet that pointed directly toward the sun, an alignment that was statistically unlikely for a comet that should be experiencing the usual chaotic motion and radiation pressure. What was even more puzzling was the fact that the opening angle of this jet was about half the degree of the gravitational deflection that 3I Atlas underwent during its flyby of the sun. This precise relationship between the jet's angle and the object's deflection suggested that the jet wasn't just a product of gas escaping from the object's surface. Instead, it appeared to be connected to a more structured force, something that couldn't easily be explained by traditional comet models. In addition to the sunward jet, the object seemed to maintain multiple jets, or even a complex jet structure after perihelion. These jets continued to exhibit an extraordinary level of consistency and alignment, even as the object's path changed. This was not the random behavior of a comet shedding material, but something more deliberate. These features were so well organized that they didn't simply fit into the framework of cometary outgassing. The more scientists observed, the more it seemed as though the object wasn't just drifting through space, but was engaged in some kind of active process. What made this all the more mysterious was that 3I Atlas didn't break apart, as many expected from such an intense passage near the sun. Instead, it remained a single intact body, with its sunward anti-tail visible even after its closest approach, something that was far from typical for a comet subjected to the intense heat and radiation of the sun. 3I Atlas's behavior didn't just stop with its jets. Its trajectory, its path through the solar system, also stood out. As it entered our solar system, 3I Atlas followed a retrograde trajectory that seemed unusually aligned with the plane of the planets, a path that, statistically speaking, shouldn't happen by chance. The alignment was precise enough that it raised questions about the nature of the object's motion. Was it following a natural path through the stars, or was something influencing its direction? If so, what? This mysterious alignment took on added significance when 3I Atlas's trajectory was compared to other astronomical anomalies. For example, the object's direction of travel aligned to within 9 degrees of the famed WOW signal, a radio signal detected from space in 1977 that has been speculated to have originated from an extraterrestrial source. The WOW signal was a brief burst of radio waves that were so unusual in their frequency and characteristics that scientists still debate its origin, some speculating it may have been a signal sent by an extraterrestrial civilization. The fact that 3I Atlas's trajectory closely matched the direction of the WOW signal certainly piqued curiosity. While this alignment may seem coincidental, it added to the growing list of strange coincidences surrounding 3I Atlas's journey. A few anomalies might be dismissed as random, but the more that piled up, the harder it became to ignore the possibility that this object was somehow following a path or even a purpose that didn't match the randomness expected of a typical interstellar comet. The question that emerged was not just whether this object was another wandering comet on an unpredictable course, but whether its path was intentionally directed. Could 3I Atlas have been guided or influenced by something beyond the natural forces at work in the cosmos? Was it simply an object lost in space, or was there a greater design at play, something that set this object on a course that aligned so closely with the infamous signal of potential alien origins? The more data astronomers gathered, the more it seemed that 3I Atlas might not be following the usual chaotic trajectory of space debris. Its path felt too precise, too uncanny, raising the possibility that the forces influencing it were something beyond the natural mechanisms we've come to expect. As more data came in, the object's composition raised even more concerns. Comets are usually composed of a mixture of ices, dust, and organic compounds, typically in a fairly predictable ratio. But the composition of 3I Atlas's outgassing, the material material it emitted as it passed through the solar system appeared to be significantly different from what one would expect from a typical comet. Analysis showed that the nickel-to-iron ratio in the gas released by 3I Atlas was far higher than any comet ever studied. While certain comets might contain traces of metals, this particular ratio seemed off the charts, suggesting a composition that was anything but ordinary. Nickel is a rare metal in most comets, which are predominantly composed of water ice and carbon-based compounds. But here, the object seemed to be releasing a gas rich in metals, specifically nickel. This anomaly was a major clue that 3I Atlas might not just be a simple icy rock drifting through space. Instead, it might be something else entirely, something that didn't fit into the established models of cometary chemistry. Such a composition raised further questions. Was the object naturally occurring, or was it a manufactured artifact? Could this object have been designed with an unusual material composition, possibly to serve a function, or did it represent something we had never encountered before?
This strange composition was coupled with another puzzling observation: the low mass of water in the gas compared to what we expect from typical comets. In most comets, water makes up a significant portion of the material in their tails and gas emissions. However, the amount of water released by 3I Atlas was far lower than expected. A mere 4% of its gas plume was water. This was another significant anomaly. Cometary outgassing typically produces a high water mass in the gas clouds surrounding the object, as most comets are made primarily of ice. The lack of water suggested that the object may be composed of something far more complex or even synthetic. If this wasn't a natural comet, could it be an artificial object or perhaps a remnant of some advanced technology? The more scientists studied the object, the more it seemed that it wasn't just another space rock. It was something out of the ordinary, something that didn't fit the typical definitions of a comet or asteroid. Yet perhaps one of the most perplexing features of 3I Atlas was its speed and mass. The object was far more massive than earlier interstellar visitors like Oumuamua, yet it was moving at a much higher velocity. The fact that 3I Atlas was heavier and faster than previous objects from interstellar space immediately raised suspicions. Most interstellar visitors, like Oumuamua, have passed through our solar system at relatively high speeds, but 3I Atlas was far more massive and moving with an even greater velocity. Its increased mass and speed compared to Oumuamua made it stand out, adding weight to the theory that 3I Atlas might not be a random object drifting through space, but something that had been traveling with a specific purpose in mind. Adding to the mystery was the extreme negative polarization of 3I Atlas. Polarization refers to the way light reflects off an object's surface, and the way 3I Atlas's light was polarized didn't match the expected patterns for typical comets. Cometary dust generally reflects sunlight in a way that produces a characteristic polarization pattern, but the polarization of 3I Atlas was far more extreme than anything observed in other comets. This extreme negative polarization suggested that the surface of the object might be made of a material unlike anything found in our solar system. Was it made of a synthetic substance, something designed with specific properties in mind? The negative polarization anomaly was one of the key pieces of evidence that scientists pointed to when speculating that 3I Atlas might be an artificial object, or at least one that didn't fit the profile of a typical comet. The behavior of 3I Atlas near perihelion, its closest approach to the Sun, only added to the growing list of enigmas. The object brightened unusually quickly as it neared the Sun, and its color shifted toward a distinct blue hue, something never seen in previous comets. This rapid brightening and color shift were further indications that the object was behaving differently from any comet we've encountered. Known comets usually show a gradual increase in brightness as they approach the Sun, with their tails gradually expanding, but 3I Atlas's sudden increase in brightness was more consistent with the behavior of a man-made object, designed to absorb and reflect sunlight in a controlled way. The blue color also stood out, suggesting that 3I Atlas might have some kind of surface composition or structure that altered the way it reflected sunlight, another feature not typically seen in natural comets. As 3I Atlas continues its journey toward Jupiter, the object remains a cosmic riddle. Was it simply an unusually active comet, or does it represent something far more significant? For now, the object's true purpose and the meaning behind its heartbeat remains a mystery, one that will keep astronomers, theorists, and the public guessing for years to come.